Have you ever stopped to think about the invisible armor that protects pretty much everything you see and touch? Well, today we're going to peel back the layers of the world around us and uncover the hidden science behind this unseen armor.
I mean, you've seen this, right? An old car just crumbling into dust, while the street lamp right next to it looks almost brand new after decades out in the rain? So, what's the secret? That is exactly what we're going to get into.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll meet the villain of our story, materials constantly under attack. Then we'll meet the heroes, the different kinds of armor, from a simple coat of paint to a really clever smart shield. And finally, we'll see why this hidden battle matters so much in our everyday lives.
Okay, so let's start with the heart of the problem. Materials are always, and I mean always, under attack. Every single piece of metal, from a massive bridge down to a tiny paperclip, is in a silent, constant fight for survival against the elements.
You can think of it like this. Nature is constantly trying to reclaim all the materials we've worked so hard to refine. Corrosion and oxidation, they aren't really flaws. They're just the natural way things break down. These are the relentless villains of our story, and engineers need a clever way to fight back.
So faced with these natural villains, how do engineers even begin to fight back? Well, that brings us to the hero of our story, the brilliant concept of creating a protective armor for materials.
The big idea is something called a surface treatment. See, instead of changing the entire material, which can be super expensive and difficult, you just change its outer layer. It's literally like putting a custom suit of armor on an object to protect its core. The real genius here is realizing you don't need to change the whole thing. You just have to protect its skin.
All right, so where do we start with this whole armor thing? Let's begin with the most classic, most familiar defense there is, a simple coat of paint.
I know, it sounds super basic, right? But it's actually incredibly effective. Paint works by just creating a physical shield, a barrier between the metal and the two things that cause rust, air and moisture. It's the first line of defense for everything from our cars to our garden fences.
But, and this is a really big but, you can't just slap any old armor on any material. For example, if you use a common solvent-based paint on certain plastics, these things called thermoplastics, it can actually cause their internal structure, their polymer chains, to break down. It's a powerful reminder that choosing the right armor is just as critical as having armor in the first place.
Okay, so paint is a great barrier, but what if you need something, well, tougher, more durable? That's when we move on to a more specialized coating, adding a complete plastic skin.
And you won't believe how simple the process is. You just heat up the metal part, dip it into this liquid plastic stuff called Plastisol, and a perfect seamless coating literally bakes right onto the surface. It's that easy.
And the benefits? Oh, they're huge. This plastic skin is why the handles on your tools feel soft and grippy. It's why your dishwasher rack doesn't rust or chip your plates. You can even add special properties like making it resistant to fungus, fire, or even electricity. That's called dielectric strength, and it's what keeps tool handles from giving you an electric shock. It is a truly versatile kind of armor.
So far, the armor we've seen is kind of passive, right? It just sits there. But what if the armor could actively fight to protect the material underneath? Now we're getting to the really clever stuff. Let me introduce you to galvanizing, the smart shield. So, at its heart, galvanizing is pretty straightforward. It's just coating steel or iron with a layer of zinc. The goal is simple: stop corrosion and make the part last way, way longer. But how it does this, well, that's where the genius comes in.
So what's its secret? Well, the magic of galvanizing is that it isn't just one type of protection. It's actually two powerful defenses working together at the same time, and that's what makes it so incredibly effective.
So let's put them side by side. On one hand, you've got barrier protection. The best way to think of this is like a simple raincoat. On the other hand, you have something called galvanic protection. And this one is more like a dedicated bodyguard. Let's break down how each of them works.
First up, we have the raincoat effect. Just like paint, the zinc coating creates a simple physical barrier. It reacts with the air and forms this tough, sealed layer of zinc oxide, which literally just locks out the air and water that would normally cause rust. Simple.
Okay, now for the bodyguard, and honestly, this is the part that is just so smart. Chemically speaking, zinc is more reactive than steel, so if that raincoat barrier ever gets scratched, the zinc basically steps in and shouts, "Take me instead." It actually corrodes first, sacrificing itself to save the steel underneath. As long as there's any zinc nearby, the steel is safe. It is an active, self-sacrificing defense. How cool is that?
All right, So we've met this simple paint coat, the tough plastic skin, and the super smart zinc shield. But why does any of this really matter? Let's bring it all back to the world that you and I live in.
Seriously, the next time you walk down the street, look closely at the guardrails, the lampposts, the bridges. Think about the appliances in your own kitchen. These invisible shields are absolutely everywhere. They're the unsung heroes of engineering, making our modern world safer, more durable, and more reliable, quietly battling the elements for us every single day.
So I'm going to leave you with this question. Just look around you right now. Your chair, your desk, whatever device you're watching this on. What's one thing you can spot that has a hidden coat of armor you never ever noticed before? Because I promise you, once you start looking, you'll see it everywhere. Thanks for diving into this with me.